Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started, if that sounds good with everyone. So welcome to the DTSC Tag Lunch and Learn Part 2. This is the second part of a two-part Lunch and Learn series, where part 1 we did in May, and that was just giving an overview about the Department of Toxic Substances Control's Technical Assistant Grant, or DTSC tag for short. For this part in particular, we're going to actually be going over more specifically how to build your budget for this grant. And as you can see, we have quite a few organizations here that have collaborated with us on this event, and we'd really love to take some time to introduce you to each one and provide an overview of their work before jumping right into the actual content for this webinar. So starting off, so my name is Lauren Halili. I'm the program coordinator at the San Diego State University's Center for Community Energy and Environmental Justice, or CJ for short. We're on the new EPA and DOE supported Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers, or TICTACs for short, another acronym for you all to remember. And we serve EPA Region 9, which includes California, Nevada, Arizona, Hawaii, Guam, American Samoa, and the Northern Mariana Islands. So we're actually based at San Diego State University, and our network involves 11 participating organizations who work together to provide free technical assistance and expertise for the entire Region 9. Two of those partners are actually CClear and Environmental Protection Network, which were listed as one of the collaborative organizations for this event. And some of our technical assistance services include a variety of grant-related support, including grant writing, grant identification, registering for SAM.gov and grants.gov, and a whole lot more. And we also offer other services related to brownfield support, energy policy and law expertise, how to use environmental justice screening tools, leadership development, translation services, and more beyond that. To learn more about what services we offer, you can visit our website using the QR code on the right-hand side. If you're interested in receiving technical assistance from CJ, there's another QR code on the top right corner that you can fill out our form, where a team member will reach out to you to schedule a one-on-one 30-minute consultation, just to kind of go over what your organization is, what kind of assistance needs that you might want, and kind of create an assistance plan from there. I can also drop in these links in the chat after this slide, and as well as our email, phone number, and website. On to Environmental Protection Network. So our representative from EPN isn't here today, so I'll be speaking on their behalf. The Environmental Protection Network, which is one of our 11 participating organizations in the CJ network, also referred to as EPN. They're a really unique organization that's focused on building the capacity of environmental agencies and the communities that they serve, looking to address urgent health and environmental crises. What makes EPN really unique is that they're really volunteer-driven. They harness the expertise of over 600 plus former EPA career staff to provide a unique perspective of former regulations, historical knowledge, and just general subject matter expertise. EPN assists in building capacity of these agencies, addressing those environmental health concerns through national policy advocacy, pro bono technical assistance, recruiting and retaining greater diversity of EPA staff, and educating Congress and acting as a resource to the press. You can see on the right-hand side kind of outlines what the pro bono technical assistance sort of looks like under EPN. They increasingly provide individualized support for those underrepresented communities, looking to acquire funding opportunities, any technical support, looking to address those environmental health concerns. Environmental Protection Network is really pioneering the way for that. And I'm going to pass it off to Mario to talk about the Department of Toxic Substances Control.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Mario Cazares. I'm with the Department of Toxic Substances Control. I am currently serving as the program coordinator for the Technical Assistant Grant Program within DTSC. So just to give a little background on DTSC, we are a part of the California Environmental Protection Agency, and our mission is that our What we do is that we regulate more than 100,000 entities to prevent the release of hazardous substances and waste, clean up of contamination, and we ensure that hazardous waste is handled safely all across California. And essentially the background of the Technical Assistant Grant Program itself is that in 2021, the Cleanup in Vulnerable Community Initiative was enacted to address contamination and grow DTSC's collaboration with vulnerable communities through various programs across the state. And the Technical Assistant Grant Program falls under the CVCI program. So for DTSC today, we'll have myself presenting as coordinator. And we also have Isabella Roman, who's a senior environmental scientist working with TAG as well, and Patty Ochoa, who's the CVCI branch chief.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicole, and I am a senior program associate at the Center for Creative Land Recycling, or CCLR, or CCLEAR, as you'll typically hear us referred to. CCLEAR is a national nonprofit that has been working for 25 years to empower municipalities and community groups to repurpose vacant and contaminated lands because everyone deserves clean, healthy, and safe neighborhoods. And we are DTSC's application assistance provider for the TAG program. So any questions that you have specifically for TAG, or if you would like application assistance, you will come to us. And that'll be with me and my co-worker, Tamara. And Tamara will be dropping links in the chat throughout the event and more information about the slides that we are going through. Next slide, please. All right, so let's jump right into it. So when looking at building a budget, these are the different budget categories. And this little chart right here is pulled directly from the grant application portal. So this is what you will see when you go in and you start your application. It's pretty straightforward. We have the categories of technical advisor, laboratory costs, activities conducted by the grantee, community engagement, and language accessibility, and other. And so when looking at the technical advisor, since that is really a big portion of the program, we would like to see a minimum of 50% of your budget allocated to that. So that is not currently a requirement, but that requirement will be instituted very soon. And since there is a period that you have to wait after submitting your letter of intent, then essentially everybody who is attending this should be keeping that in mind and following that guidance. When looking at laboratory costs, not everybody will be doing sampling. If you decide to do that, you want to do sampling, you want to make sure that you are working with DTSC to get that sampling approved and make sure that it is in line with what you should be doing for that. Looking at activities conducted by the grantee, we do already have this current requirement of that being a maximum 20% of your budget. And then a new requirement that will also be going into effect on the 1st is that community engagement and language accessibility will be a maximum 20% of your budget. And so you do have this chart that is pretty simple. And then there is a area in there for you to put in your narrative of what you will be doing within each category and really explaining the activities that you will be conducting within each of those with an emphasis on why you chose these activities and how they will help you meet your goal of educating and engaging your community. And then if you do have any questions while we're going through the presentation, feel free to drop those in the chat and then there will be time for us to go through that afterwards. All right, so we're looking at the technical advisor category. A technical advisor, just for an overview of those who have not previously joined us. I know we did have pretty broad outreach for this event, so I also want to make sure that we're all on the same page about this program being for communities and cleanup sites in California. And so a technical advisor is a person who has the technical expertise, skills, and ability to understand environmental data and communicate that information to the community surrounding the site. And when we're speaking on the community, we do mean those residents and people that live within 5 miles of that cleanup site. And so, like I said before, the TA budget should be at least 50% of your total grant request. When you are looking at procuring a TA, you should build out a scope of your relevant tasks that you want them to complete. And those eligible tasks can be found on page 7 of the grant guidelines. Tamara is also dropping in the chat some examples of those. When looking for a TA, we recommend that you reach out to multiple TAs to get quotes. And DTSC has compiled a list of environmental professionals who have responded to a call for statements of interest and qualifications that they put out. So they put out this call. There's a form that environmental professionals can go to, fill out their information, and then DTSC just takes that information, copies it, and puts it on the website. In no way do they or we at CCLAIR vet these candidates at all. So you really want to make sure that you're going through, making sure that they have the qualifications needed to work with you and your community specifically. And we also created a TA guide that has a lot of different questions that you can ask and kind of gives you a lot more context and information on what you should be looking for. Also in the guidelines, there are examples of different certificates and education that we recommend the TA have. But again, whoever you're working with, you really want to make sure that they're vetted and that you are making sure that their qualifications line up with the contaminants that are at your site and what will be helpful to your community specifically. And we also have found that rates for TAs can range from about $100 to $500 an hour. So that's something to keep in mind when you are asking for rates from TAs. Next slide, please. All right, so looking at laboratory costs. So if you are going to do sampling, it must be in line with Appendix B of the guidelines. And you want to also make sure that you are aware that the community science or community confirmation sampling portion requires voluntary consent, which is basically just permission from the property owners, whether that be private or public land. Like I also said before, you want to make sure that if you are wanting to do sampling, that you're working with DTSC to get that approved and making sure that the sampling is in line with their requirements. When you're considering a sampling plan, of course, it's going to be dependent on the degree of the contamination and what's going to be tested for. Getting the most realistic cost obviously would just be to reach out directly to a lab or consultant about this. Because there is such a varying complexity of sampling that may need to be done, the range can kind of vary greatly in the budget amount. So that can be anywhere from 5% to 20%. And Tamara is also dropping more context about this in the chat as well. Next slide, please. All right, so looking at activities conducted by the grantee. Like I said before, this can be a maximum of 20% of your total grant request, and examples of eligible tasks can be found in the guidelines on page 7. But just to go over some of those eligible costs, this includes completing your quarterly reports, which can be something that you might forget about, but you are going to have to complete a report each quarter during every year of your grant term. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that, looking and thinking about how much it's going to take for you to do invoice processing, thinking about your time spent organizing and attending community meetings. We do, of course, have the community engagement category, though. So if any community engagement is falling under the activities conducted by the grantee, you really want to kind of look at that as the supportive behind the scenes administration tasks that are in line with that. And then anything that goes in the community engagement category is everything that is actually outward facing within the community. So for example, if you're doing canvassing or you're attending a farmer's market with a booth or something like that. Next slide, please. All right, so looking at community engagement and language accessibility, community engagement is really just encouraging community participation in the DTSC cleanup process and educating them about what is going on with the site. So this is a maximum of 20% of your total grant request, like I said before. And examples of eligible costs include organizing the community meetings, such as sourcing a location, scheduling, creating flyers, performing any type of outreach. This can be in person or via social media, creating fact sheets and any other type of materials like PowerPoints, and also printing any costs and postage. For example, if you're having a community meeting and you want to send out a little flyer inviting community members to that, then the postage would fall in line with the community engagement category. Next slide, please. All right, and then we do have the pretty broad category of other. which should really not be a substantial portion of your budget because most of the things will fall within the other categories that we went through. Besides your fiscal sponsor fees, if you are a community group who is going to be under fiscal sponsorship, then those fees would go in here. Because the category is so broad, you want to make sure that you're really entering a high level of detail when you're describing what each item is that you're putting under this category. And the description must justify the expense and explain how it's in line with your goals of educating the community and engaging them in the process. All right, next slide. And now I'm going to pass it over to Isabella from DTSC. She's going to go over a few scenarios and examples of looking at how to build a budget depending on the different activities you want to do, whether you're going to do sampling or not, to kind of give us a good idea in our mind of what we are looking at. So I'll hand it over to Isabella.
Thanks, Nicole. So first, we're going to go over a few different scenarios. The first one is scenario A, and this community group is requesting $80,000 over 18 months. And the overall goal for this grant funding is for hopefully for them to become involved earlier in the project. So all budgets in this scenario and just all budgets should consider the minimum and maximum allowances. So for technical advisor, again, that's a 50% minimum. So here it's 50% of 80,000 at least. For grantee activities, it's a maximum of 20%. So again, we're looking at a maximum 20% of 80,000. And then community engagement, again, it's a maximum of 30%. So 30% of the 80,000 that this group is requesting. So this community group is requesting funding to be involved in a cleanup project where a preliminary endangerment assessment or PEA will be completed. The group would like a technical advisor to help them be more engaged with the project during the PEA phase of the cleanup project. The group would also like to share the results with the community and get feedback. The group hopes early engagement in the project will help inform the community about the cleanup process. So that's kind of a general overview of what they want the funding for. So this slide gets more into the budget breakdowns between all of the different categories. So a tip is remember that your budget amounts should reflect the type and number of your activities and also the complexity. So first we can get into this grantee activities box on the left. So again, for grantee activities, it's a maximum of 20%. So here, this group is requesting 20% of the 80,000, which gives you the 16,000 number in the box. And this box shows the 6 activities that they're planning to use that money for. So 1, they're going to reserve rooms for community meetings. 2, complete quarterly reports for the grant. 3, manage the grant budget. 4, manage the grant work plan. 5, manage the grant timeline. And 6, manage the contract with the technical advisor. Getting into this middle category here, the technical advisor category, again, that's a minimum of 50%, and this group is requesting the minimum. So 50% of 80,000 gives you that 40,000 shown in the box. And they've proposed these 6 activities. So they have 1, review the PEA work plan and PEA report. 2, observe PEA sampling and field work. 3, evaluate the results of the PEA report. 4, attend community meetings and share information. 5, produce a document based on community feedback for DTSC regarding the PEA. And 6, they're going to have regular meetings with the community group to share progress of the investigation and cleanup activities. So then getting into this third category, this is community engagement. And again, that's a maximum of 30%. So here, this group is requesting the maximum. So they're requesting 30% of the 80,000, which gives you that 24,000 number shown. And then they have these 10 activities listed under community engagement. So they have 1, plan agenda for community meetings. 2, facilitate community meetings. 3, produce flyers for community meetings. 4, print and distribute the flyer. 5, outreach via door-to-door and social media. 6, hire a translator for the meeting. 7, meet with the community on a quarterly basis to provide updates. 8, draft email communications and social media updates. 9, involve 3 community members in regular meetings with the TA. These community members will share this information with other members of the community. And 10, translate the documents to Spanish. And you'll notice there's no lab cost category here because they didn't propose to do any confirmation sampling. So the next slide will show the next scenario, scenario B. And this is mostly the same as scenario A that we just went over, except this one, they're adding confirmation sampling to the scope. And they're also requesting more funding. So here they're requesting 125,000. Thank you. So this shows the grantee activity category and the community engagement category. These two have the same tasks as the previous example did, but the difference here is less of the money is being allocated to these two categories because they're focusing more of the money towards the technical advisor category and the lab cost category because of the change in the scope of work since they want to do confirmation sampling. So these are all the same activities, but grantee activities now has 15% and community engagement now has 15% of the overall budget. Next slide, please. And then, so this is where more of the differences between the two examples. So technical advisor, now they're requesting 65% of the overall budget. And most of these tasks are the same, except for there are a few differences. So number 4 is different, where they're going to have the TA develop a confirmation sampling plan with community input. And this is basically just the plan for where the TA will collect samples during PEA fieldwork. And then number 5, the TA will actually go out and collect the confirmation samples. And 6, the TA will draft a report that presents confirmation sampling results. And then the lab costs category, that is 5% of the overall budget. And this allows for 5 to 10 samples to be analyzed by the lab, either soil gas, and/or groundwater. And that's pretty much it. We're also going to we plan to send out a handout with these examples and a few other examples. So if you're interested, look out for that handout. And with that, I'll hand it back to Nicole.
Thanks, Isabella. All right, so we're going to get into Q&A. First, I'm just going to go over all the information on this slide. So if you have any questions after the webinar, you can contact CClear with that very simple email right there, which is just tag@cclr.org. If you have any questions that are a lot more specific about your site or maybe about sampling, you can contact DTSC at that email right there. Like I said before, we are the application assistance provider. So we would love for you to schedule an appointment with us via that link right there, which Tamara is also dropping in the chat, or you can find it through scanning that QR code right there. And I'll take you to the site. Also, we will be sending that around after the webinar as well. But we can meet with you to discuss eligibility, look at your application, go over your specific budget, and any specific questions that you have. And we do offer that in English and Spanish. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.